Oh hi, I'm the heretic. The internet is broken. On some level, everyone probably understands that. Every other week, there's news of some big data breach from major companies. Popular websites are hit by DDoS attacks, by hackers exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities, or foreign governments performing cyber warfare attacks against each other from behind the scenes. In 2012, Edward Snowden revealed that the government is archiving everything you do on the internet. People came to realize that everything we're doing online is being watched, all the way down to knowing the key presses on your keyboard and your mouse movements on websites. This is especially true if you're using services provided by Silicon Valley giants such as Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Reddit, and Google. These big tech giants keep track of your information by collecting metadata, such as recording your web searches, interaction times with websites, and who you associate with online by accessing your contacts. Then, to add insult to injury, they sell this data without your knowledge or consent to big data firms and other companies who spam you with targeted advertising based on your interests. There's almost no expectation of privacy, as people have just gotten used to the idea of being watched. It's like the best we can do is protect against identity thieves or malware, but protecting ourselves against lying sociopaths who have a reason to weaponize our private lives against us? Forget about it. Now, we're not saying the internet is bad. It is a genuinely great and wonderful invention. It's enabled global communication, allowing us real-time access to expertise from around the world, facilitated commerce at levels that would not have been possible before. I mean, you try getting one-day shipping during the days of Sears mail order catalogs. It just wouldn't happen. Either way, if you're watching this video, there's a good chance we don't need to explain how awesome the internet is.
Statists will smugly remind us about ARPANET, how government agencies designed a nuclear-proof information-sharing network that became the foundation for what we now know as the modern internet, how the government funded the creation of and subsidized the continued existence of companies we all know and recognize. The very same tech giants Filthy mentioned earlier. Statists will expound, how dare we question the government? Were it not for their wise investment of your money, you would have never even gotten access to the internet. But wait a minute. This is the very same internet that is constantly plagued with data scandals, invasive advertising, and privacy breaches every other week, where Silicon Valley and the EU is constantly tightening the thumbscrews of allowable opinions. That internet? Statists then respond with something along the lines of, well, that's just the free market, you see. The Wild West, Mad Max world of the internet had absolutely nothing to do with the government whatsoever. People just have too much freedom and autonomy, and if they would simply submit to the arbitrary whims of government, bureaucrats, and politicians, everything would be orderly and swell. Suffice to say, statists want to have it both ways. They want to take credit for the creation of the internet, but then all the problems of the modern internet suddenly have nothing to do with them.
What's funny about these government master narratives is that they're argued in immediate succession of one another regarding the exact same subject. This is a classic example where the state is responsible for all the positive developments of the internet because the state developed the internet. Yet when a structural issue is pointed out, such as, say, the state forcing the internet to be built upon major defects, the state coercing the corporate policy of online media firms or server hosts to suit their agenda, or the state suppressing more efficient, structurally sound alternatives, people always blame the free market.
What this ends up creating is a hilarious logical paradox, which I'm going to go ahead and refer to as Schrodinger's statism. When everything is going great, the state is the only organization who you can credit. When shit hits the fan, suddenly the state's influence is nowhere to be found. Something Shane Killian has observed in statist argumentation and refers to as the microcosm fallacy is when one party in a debate asserts that a perceived conclusion is the consequence of something which they haven't provided an explanation to prove that the said conclusion was a result of what they claimed that it is. Or, in most cases, that whatever they're claiming is the causal factor or even relevant to the discussion. Except I've observed that many statists also like to engage in a fallacious debate tactic, which is the polar opposite of the microcosm fallacy, where suddenly, if you have an example of the state causing some sort of problem, and you have a causal explanation of why this problem is with the state or the state is responsible for it, chucklefucks will claim that some non-state actor is responsible, even if there is no explanation provided for why. Oh, I have the opportunity to coin one of my own neologisms. Sweet. I think I'll call this the macrocosm fallacy.
The argument the government tries to sell to the public is that spending their stolen money for research and development produces many of the technological wonders that wouldn't exist but for the government's intervention. Often this is used to support the idea of the multiplier effect in Keynesian economics, the premise that every dollar a government spends generates up to 4 times as much economic production than if it were spent in the so-called private sector. So how dare we gripe and complain when the state spends the money it stole from you on vital research?
This narrative falls apart quickly once we remember that machines, software, electronic devices, and really just about everything doesn't simply spawn out of nowhere as this suggests. Every product or service which exists today is the product of knowledge for how to utilize resources in our immediate environment, expanding as more information, methodologies, and resources are discovered. Some being added onto the previously established knowledge, some creating an entirely new trend which causes the previous methodologies to become less useful in comparison, and the observations when the previous now irrelevant methodologies were widely practiced now only exist as an abstract fact. So even if we were to give this argument the benefit of the doubt and assume that the internet does have its roots to some extent in government research projects, we can tell from a cursory glance that something must be wrong here with this narrative in particular, based on the fact alone that this narrative attempts to assert that somehow, with no explanation, out of nowhere, a government research project managed to poof an innovation which didn't have anything close to a precedent into existence. But with this being said, once one understands that any sort of innovative development is simply an expansion on how you or anyone else who understands what you've managed to articulate can utilize their resources, it becomes obvious that though maybe the state can innovate, the model which the state obtains its funding, the way it operates within society, and how there are no cooperating or competing organizations, the state is the least capable organization when it comes to any sort of research projects. Again, similar to evolution, one arrives at stronger, more positive results when there are as many genes as possible being utilized in as many manners as possible. The fewer genes there are in the genetic makeup of an organism, the more likely said organism is to have genetic defects. Hence the reason inbreeding is generally discouraged. So, an organization which is fundamentally limited in the ways its members are able to use information, because almost fucking everything has some sort of conflict of interest with the master narrative being promoted by it, or with an industry that it's cartelized to maximize revenue for itself by manipulating geopolitical events, and one which operates around a monopoly on violence, so it's able to obtain its funds in a coercive, parasitic manner, or not having any incentive to efficiently distribute those resources that they've taken from society, and even being able to do so if they wanted to, since it operates fundamentally independent of price signals due to how it obtains its funds. Said organization seems to be counterproductive to the prospect of innovating anything in just about every regard. And if you really get down to it, because state research projects are funded in a parasitic, coercive manner, their mere existence actually stops people who are curious to experiment with new methodologies for every specialized area of research, by making it more difficult for said researchers and investors to obtain funds or to obtain resources to loan to researchers. And because of the state, now we'll never know the technology that might have existed if those resources weren't being forcibly diverted to the state's pet projects, let alone all the resources spent on dead-end projects that never went or never will go anywhere. The state wants us to focus on the benefits, but ignore the hidden, hemorrhaging costs, and forget that it has no competitors or organizations to cooperate with in their geographic boundary, when they can extort all the funds they need by demanding protection money, quote-unquote, from us. What incentive do they have to provide things we actually want? Other than superficially appeasing the public's opinions, they receive revenue regardless of whether or not they serve the interests of their citizens. The fact that the internet came about at all shouldn't be seen as proof of government efficacy, but rather a happy accident, a coincidence of wants. We know, without question, the state had no interest in developing a decentralized and distributed communications network for us. If it was designed by the government, it was designed to allow the government to keep functioning in the event of a nuclear war. The Keynesian multiplier effect is really an argument for totalitarianism. If government spending was more productive than private speculation, then why should any government permit property rights to exist if it's a direct impediment to prosperity?
Encryption was in development in the late 70s, when TCP/IP was still in development. TCP/IP being the system that allows virtually any computer network to communicate with other networks, regardless of hardware, software, or programming language. Having end-to-end encryption between trusted clients meant that without the mathematical key to decrypt the message, it was unreadable. All without requiring the sender or receiver to disclose any information themselves. Complete, anonymous, end-to-end encryption that made man-in-the-middle attacks fruitless. Recall that the system of converting information into data packets to be sent through phone lines in a decentralized network was originally devised so communications could continue after a nuclear war. From a military standpoint, intercepted sensitive information would be outdated by the time it was decrypted. For the rest of us who aren't the pawns for the foreign policy objectives of politicians and bankers, it means secure communications that were exactly as anonymous as a user wished to be, which we'll get to in a little later. But if end-to-end encryption was being worked on as early as the 70s, why don't we have it today?
Encryption algorithms were prevented from entering civilian networks by the NSA, claiming the ability for you, dear viewer, to have privacy and security in your communications was a threat to national security. The US government claimed encryption algorithms were a quote-unquote military technology, and thus subject to export restrictions of military technology.
This was transparently ridiculous, since encryption was being produced in numerous civilian spheres, including academia. But that didn't stop the NSA from going to the professors and ordering them not to publish cryptography papers.
The majority of the flaws the internet suffers from are not just the result of antiquated protocols and network infrastructure, but designs imposed by the government to promote mass surveillance, data mining, and centralized infrastructure. The assertion that we should thank the government for the internet, but blame the free market for its failures is just a blatant insult to the original design of the internet. To understand how the internet has been corrupted, we should first try to explain how the internet functions. Let's start with an example of how data gets from one place to another. Suppose you are sending an email or in a voice call with a friend. Your computer then sends it to your home router, which sends it to your ISP's network. Assuming that your friend is on another ISP network, your friend's ISP then sends it to their home router. Your data is then finally received at the Internet Protocol address, IP address, of your friend's computer. The way the system is currently, there's an unnecessarily complicated series of steps, with multiple points where a man-in-the-middle attack can intercept and listen to your call, collect your email, or read your text messages without your knowledge. There are potentially hundreds of openings for interception due to data not taking a direct path, passing through multiple third-party servers or other countries in such a way that you can't verify whether the transmissions have been tampered with via a man-in-the-middle attack or not. Even if it's encrypted, a large group with enough resources can still aggregate the encrypted data and decrypt it over time through brute force means. At least encryption acts as a deterrent against these attacks due to the info being out of date or not worth the effort, if it even can be cracked. That doesn't mean there wasn't a reasonable cause for cryptography not to be built into TCP. Encryption requires more computing power. Distributing encryption keys to users was also troubling. Now, does this mean end-to-end encryption was doomed to fail? Was it going to happen, but the NSA was the straw that broke the camel's back? It's difficult to say, but we can confirm that the agencies in the US government saw it as a threat to their interests, for you to be able to communicate without a third party eavesdropping on them. I'll put it simply. They wanted the power to spy on you and your web traffic as early as the 70s.
Now let's talk about Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP. How does your system know to transfer your data from your router to your ISP or to their ISP? Border Gateway Protocol. It creates tables on which information as to the best pathway data packets can best take in order to reach its destination is stored, and then updated by computer networks sharing information about their data connections. With it, network traffic travels along seemingly infinite pathways despite the internet having no maps.
The problem is that this system automatically trusts users. By spoofing BGP messages, networks may be flagged as the best pathway, even if this is clearly false. Such a thing happened in February 2008, when the Pakistani ISP had all of YouTube's web traffic routed through their networks. In April of 2010, the Pentagon's network traffic was routed through Beijing servers for 18 minutes before the problem was corrected. With no way to verify BGP messages without connectivity, there's no preventing computers less than a mile away from each other from having their network traffic routed around the world. BGP works on an honor system, and will break down the moment an organization with the resources to do so will operate in bad faith. It should come as no surprise, therefore, that the system was never intended to be the basis for routing network traffic. It was designed in 1989 as a desperate attempt to hack together a quick fix for the problem of contemporary network protocols running into a hard limit on the number of possible connections as the internet scaled upwards. The system was literally drawn on the back of 3 napkins, hence why it's also known as the 3 napkins protocol. Trouble is that the quick fix was good enough, that it was never replaced by a more robust and secure protocol. The result is that network traffic itself is vulnerable to misdirection. which, as Pakistan has demonstrated, can throttle or even shut down entire websites.
The protocol the Three Napkins Protocol was replacing was designed by government agents and with government funding. In its absence, resources would have been used to make a long-term solution to an obvious scaling issue a long time ago, as opposed to a band-aid solution to fix a system designed with military objectives in mind rather than economic ones. The long-term solution the designers of the Three Napkins Protocol hoped would come about would have been the status quo in the absence of government coercion and diverting of resources.
There are other problems of TCP/IP as well. Denial of service attacks happen when data packets are sent with false information as to their origin or IP spoofed. The target router or server is then overloaded with information, and the server slows down or stops working. Such a network is prone to vulnerabilities and exploits that leave you less safe. If you want to be safe, I'm going to let you in on a secret. There's a great threat to your internet privacy, greater than all the factors previously mentioned. One so critical it doesn't matter how many network proxies you use. If your computer is running on an OS designed yourself, with communications running on 6 layers of encryption, have you guessed what that great threat to your privacy is? It's you. All the information that you voluntarily disclose on the web is an existential threat to your privacy, which will eventually become a threat to your safety. Social media sites, you know the ones. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. All the things that people post about themselves at every minute is archived on a vast treasure trove of data. With it, they know what you do, who you're seeing, through facial recognition, where you are, how long you are somewhere, what your schedule looks like, how you feel about someone. Even an innocuous tweet such as "I hate Mondays" can reveal a lot about a person. Their workday starts on a Monday. They're discontent with their schedule. Even if you're careful, only disclosing as little information as possible, with hundreds of tweets, it's still enough to give a general profile about a person. Anyone in Silicon Valley can then sell your information to big data firms, who in turn can then target advertisements tailored to your profile based on what they think you want.
Now consider the saying, the average American commits 3 felonies a day. What it means is that the US legal code is so large and contradictory that an average person going about their day and going out of their way to avoid what they consider to be illegal activity could still get charged with a felony without any intent to ever commit a crime. For example, under antitrust statutes, all commerce in the US is illegal. After all, if you're selling anything, you're either committing price gouging, cutthroat competition, or cartelized pricing. Now, most people aren't convicted of their daily felonies because they aren't caught. Except now, because everything we do is recorded, often voluntarily by ourselves. Which one of your 3 felonies did you save on your Facebook wall or your Instagram history without realizing it? When did you? If you're like most people, then you have thousands of tweets, thousands of Facebook posts for everything, from pictures and videos of food, pets, friends, family, travel, fine dining, recreation, going back many years, even possibly decades. If you send photos and videos back and forth through text messaging on any phone application, they're saving that too, of course they are. With how vague legislation is, can you be 100% certain that you have never posted anything that could possibly be interpreted as criminal, or even retroactively used as evidence if something you did in the past becomes illegal in the future?
This is hardly unique. There are countless examples of states all around the world giving monopoly grants to certain firms to prevent competing models or organizations from speculating with resources to create a more innovative, subversive product, or the state directly coercing people who end up creating subversive products, even if they're not currently illegal at the time that they're originally made. For most markets, it's impossible to legally sell products or operate as a producer in said market without either a license from one of the many alphabet agencies in the state's bureaucracy, a patent from one or more of the U.S. government's agencies, the FDA for instance, or without associating with a loaning agency or bank associated with the federal government. So what's to be expected from most human actors that associate in the political economy? The state, at least, has an indirect influence over every commodity on the production line and how the said firms utilize them, which is why oftentimes you see in scientific journals and publications put out by various academic institutions cures for diseases that have been found or technologies which have been invented that can fundamentally change the structure of society, or that new methodological approaches were discovered that fundamentally change how people approach certain fields of research. But we never hear anything about them again, and their white papers, along with the innovators, quietly fade into obscurity. They're never refuted, nothing about their work is shown to be wrong, or evidence is presented which counters their work. They just disappear for no discernible reason, and most of them are never heard from again. Sometimes these are obvious. Bank robbers have been caught, for instance, because they posted a selfie with the cash that they stole on social media the day after their robbery. But the state has more insidious ways of tracking you. Murderers have been caught because they searched how to strangle someone on Google the day before, or how to dispose of a body. Oh yeah, your search queries are being tracked as well. With it, Silicon Valley firms know what you're interested in and when. Have you ever looked up what restaurants are popular in a town? Google now knows what you like to eat. Directions to the airport? You just told Google where you're going. Don't like your location being leaked? Next time consider using OpenStreetMaps and downloading the map to your phone. Your Google documents? They keep those archived, even your unsaved drafts and deleted documents. Your Gmail account? Google keeps those, even your drafted and deleted messages. You probably use your Gmail account when making accounts on some websites, am I right? Of course they're saving all that information too, though. Through Amazon, they know what you're shopping for and probably what your habits are. Buying a gardening spade tells Amazon you do gardening, for example. You don't even need to be using Amazon for your online shopping to be spied upon. All of your online activity on some web browsers, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Microsoft Edge to name some of the worst offenders, archive your search history. What web pages you visit, how often, how long you spend looking at a particular web page. It's no coincidence that Google is trying to break into the phone business. The iPhone, for example, is heavily compromised. In your pocket is a microphone, a camera, a compass, a gyroscope, proximity detector, ambient light sensor, accelerometer. Hell, there are even sensors in some smartphones to detect the intensity of the local gravitational field. The government has backdoor access to all of these sensors built into the hardware. All of this data is archived, time-stamped, and you wouldn't even know until they've already used it against you. Roughly 3/4 of all iPhone and Android apps require access to GPS tracking. Going somewhere secret? They know it. Send a photo or a video to your girlfriend? They have it. In fact, it's almost certainly being looked over by algorithms for quote-unquote illegal activity, possibly being saved in some agent's porn folders. They have entire databases specifically for combing through millions of videos to find which felonies you record yourself committing. They have a record of where you've been, when, and how fast you were traveling. They can cross-reference this with similar data from others so they know who you're meeting and when. Since phones have a camera and a microphone, people with iPhones are little different than undercover agents wearing a wire. They are effectively 1984's telescreens, but we gave money to our rulers for them and carry them around in our pockets. But who's to blame us? We're not buying the spyware. The smartphones are extremely useful, and the state has engineered the economy in favor of these highly compromised products. They're virtually the only smartphones available for most people. Even if you are somehow carrying around a $3,000 non-compromised phone, or none at all, you almost certainly associate with someone who does, and they can access that device to spy on you, friends, family members, or customers wandering around your place of business. Even if you're using an anonymized account or are accessing the internet on a clean device, say a brand new laptop, because of all of the information they already have, they can identify you by their profile of you. Schedule, search habits, shopping, even using forensic linguistics to identify how you write, sentence length, use of certain words or phrases, etc., using data valence to match you by the sensory data of your phones. Even when searches are anonymized, they can be de-anonymized very easily if you have enough data to match a profile to a source. Even if you go out of your way to ensure all of your data is secure and private, genuinely, they can still ID you.
Some think there is a difference between a corporation and the government getting your information. There isn't. Every one of these big tech firms is involved with the state. Amazon is with the CIA. Google was formed using funding and expertise from another CIA front group and continues to receive subsidies. The tech giants are more than happy to give your information to the government at their request. The NSA doesn't even need to do that much spying anymore, because it's been entirely outsourced to Silicon Valley. Following the Patriot Act and the so-called War on Terror, there has been a surplus of military-grade equipment, including surveillance equipment, given to police departments across the US as part of the Pentagon's 1033 program. They are capable of watching you as much as the FBI is. Given that policing is, first and foremost, a revenue generation source for local, municipal, and state governments, they will abuse their power to find any infraction you might have committed in order to extract more money out of you after taxes. This will become increasingly frequent, as states and municipalities face massive funding gaps and mounting debt. If you're a regular viewer on this channel, then you know that cockroaches are a real and serious threat to your safety. What this all adds up to is that the internet, as it is currently designed, allows the state an infinite number of opportunities to screw you over. They know when you are engaged in political activism, and because of your shopping history, know what books you might be reading, and which philosophy you adhere to. They know your likes and dislikes, your schedule, hobbies, occupation, interests, and, yes, your sexual fetishes. And advertisements can be recommended to you based on that. Even if they can't nail you legally, they still have plenty of tools to ruin your life, plenty of blackmail material, with programs both in the works and already in place to make your life harder. Such as Operation Choke Point, which allows FDIC bureaucrats to list certain parties, in other words, parties whose interests are opposed to the state's, as being high risk. Thus, banks who service these parties are targeted for increased scrutiny and auditing. It's basically a dog whistle from the government to say, hey, bank, stop servicing these guys because they're big, mean, poopy heads and we don't like them. There are also pre-crime detection algorithms in development and already deployed in the West. Your online activity, such as affiliating with organizations the state doesn't like, might flag you as a pre-criminal, subject to police harassment, or even having your kids stolen by the state. Something you already see today. What's arguably even more insidious is how articles written by government-approved publications are presented on your newsfeed and are used to socially engineer you into one of several government-approved narrative structures. And they know how to market these to your individual interests. They know you better than you know yourself and know which secrets told to which people would inflict the most damage to a person's life and reputation if they can't outright control what you think. To control one's mind is to control the person, And you can be absolutely certain their attempt to control our thinking is not done because they love you, because they care what you think. It's because it gives them power, and it gives you the illusion of agency in the government. Of course they'll let you vote. They already know which of the two political candidates already chosen for their willingness to play ball with international finance cartels you're going to vote for. If voting changed anything, they would have made it illegal. Perhaps this is why the US government is pushing hard to expand cell tower strength in Europe. They want to spy on foreign populations, as well as domestic ones, to give them more power and leverage internationally.
The internet not only developed largely, if not entirely independent from the state, but also the internet's development as we know it was largely hindered by state manipulation, and what we recognize as the modern commercial infrastructure of the internet is only a shallow husk of what the internet could be and originally was. The commercial model of the internet we ended up with has at least half of the points of utility stripped away just so it could be politically safe for the ruling class of state actors who rely on centralized, highly inefficient models in order to continue systematizing their coercion and tracking people. So actually, the internet in general developed in spite of the government actively trying to do everything that it could in order to stop people from expanding upon the original network protocols which were developed through independent speculation. Yes, privately in the 1970s by tech enthusiasts, in the absence of private development, it would have been literally impossible for the government to have become as expansive and pervasive as it is today. Ironically, in a way, the narrative promoted by the state is true, but not in the way they intend. The internet as is, the privacy issues, the problems created by the mere existence of ISPs, server hosting companies, or dysgenic models of designing websites, such as social media itself, are all directly or indirectly incentivized by the state, disincentivizing speculation with, or creating financial and legal threats for those who dare develop infrastructure around the internet until the government could slap together a less secure, less efficient, and generally less useful series of network protocols which significantly limited the utility of any services that were developed around them, and incentivized some pretty nasty behaviors as a consequence. But this is the model which is politically safe and of the greatest utility to state actors, not just because a serverless peer-to-peer internet with end-to-end encryption would make legislation impossible, since tracking transactions and communication with any semblance of consistency would be impossible. These politically safe protocols allow the state also to collect an endless amount of information on people without them even being aware of it, and it socially engineers the population into associating around a series of heavily centralized state-integrated programs and applications, making it much easier to control human behavior and manipulate it in a way which is itself more beneficial for the state. But the good news is that due to open source networking and the ability for crypto anarchists along with other hobbyists to still have access to these original protocols after all these years, the original internet, so to speak, is beginning to make a resurgence and is being sought after and used for various subversive purposes due to demand created for exactly such platforms and alternatives from the state's influenced internet.